In-vitro fertilization, a presentation by Whitney Watson. I'm going to start this presentation off with explaining first what in vitro fertilization is. In vitro fertilization is a process in which an egg is removed from a woman's ovaries and is fertilized with a sperm in a laboratory before being planted in a woman's uterus. In vitro fertilization allows infertile couples, same-sex couples, and single parents the opportunity to have a biological child of their own. It is a scientific and medical breakthrough that has impacted the lives of many families and potentially impacted discoveries yet to be made that could benefit society as a whole and people who are already living. During the mid-1970s, English scientist Robert Edwards and his medical colleague Patrick Steptoe were able to achieve in vitro fertilization in a lab, but had been unsuccessful in the transfer of the fertilized eggs to a woman's womb for a successful pregnancy. After 4 years of trial and error, Edwards and Steptoe managed to implant a fertilized embryo into a woman, but the pregnancy was unfortunately ectopic and resulted in termination. Following this, the pair changed the procedure and began to focus on retrieving a single mature egg instead of using a fertility drug. An egg was removed from Leslie Brown, Louise Joyce Brown's mother, and fertilized, producing an 8-cell embryo that was then implanted into her uterus, resulting in a pregnancy. Louise Joy Brown was externally perfect and healthy when born to her loving parents and thrilled doctors. The popularity of this success story gained recognition worldwide to the miracle that assisted reproduction could potentially create. Here are a few photos, specifically from a news article that featured Louise Brown on the front page, known as the Super Babe, and headlining that she was the first test tube baby. And the lovely Louise, kind of capturing that the societies finally saw her as a real baby, not just as a scientific project. And then the bottom right corner is a picture of her parents, who finally were able to have their own biological child. The individuals involved in vitro fertilization follow the medical ethics principle of respect of autonomy, because every aspect from the beginning preparation process to the birth of the child is done by free will, and with the belief that they are benefiting others through either the gift of a child or life-changing discoveries in embryonic research. The in-depth preparation process before proceeding in surgical steps follows the utilitarian approach of ethics, because it ensures that the most good is done, or at least the least amount of harm, through the evaluation of every aspect of the pregnancy, overall being proactive in eliminating the consequences by screening both the male and the female, and at a thorough, very extensive questioning. The insemination process follows the rights approach, because each donor is voluntarily involved and fully aware of each step of the process, as well as the doctor performing the procedure. The questioning often has to do with home situation or legal things regarding the status and fate of the frozen embryo and who has disposition over it, and how they will reflect abortion rights. So here are a few opposing arguments against in vitro fertilization. Many believe that more embryos being brought into existence than will be transferred into the uterus is morally unacceptable to allow them to die. They believe that artificial insemination is unethical and that surrogacy in itself is unethical, like having another person carry your child, because they believe religiously that if you were meant to have a child, the power or the will of God will allow you to do so, and you are being impatient when science has proven that it's physically not possible for certain people. And if you're waiting out on a miracle that might never happen, that could cause a lot of unhappiness and just not feeling like you're doing the most you can do when you can be proactive in the in vitro process. But IVF also represents a deviation from normal intercourse in the procreative aspects of sexual intercourse. It goes against moral principles of religion because they believe that men and women were put on the earth to have, like, sex is meant to reproduce. And so reproduction is kind of sacred in that way. And it goes against the morals of having a same-sex couple raising a child that's biologically their own. They just don't see that as being a fit parent duo. And then another priority argument that's completely different is that the money going to in vitro could be spent on something more beneficial that could benefit more people. So, say cancer research or something of that extent, when in reality, the in vitro fertilization process is so groundbreaking that it's creating life, and the extra embryos could be donated to research that could potentially save more people's lives. So that's kind of up in the air. So my response to the following slide is that embryos are a group of cells and not a living human. So in that case, it does confide with the medical ethics principle of beneficence, that healthcare providers have a duty to benefit the patients and society as a whole. I believe that if the spare or defective embryos can be donated for research, they are not being wasted, and that they are overall beneficial to society and not seen, and if they're treated with respect and not just discarded or exploited during that process, then I believe that it's ethical. I believe that surrogate pregnancies allow couples who wouldn't be able to have a biological child the opportunity is something that is ethical, because everyone deserves to have happiness, and if having a child is something that you want to have and it's not physically possible for you, then surrogacy still allows you to have a biological child of your own, just through a safer process for both you and the child. The process of insemination during in vitro fertilization is the only differentiate between in vitro and a natural pregnancy. It is still an egg and still a sperm combining to create a human life. It's just done with a little bit of assistance in a lab, which can be confusing and kind of not seen not as natural. But once it's inserted into a woman and grows in her womb just like a normal child and birthed obviously normally, I think that it's not very different. And then for my final point, although spending money to fund other research experiments that could benefit a larger amount of people, in vitro enables a family's dream to come true and creates life. And also the research that could be possibly done with cells and like embryonic studies is beneficial to society in a whole. So I believe that it is ethical. Again, stating my position, I believe that in vitro fertilization is ethical because it gives all couples an opportunity to have a biological child of their own. All parties involved are prepared and are willingly participating with the procedure and process. Although I'm still uncertain where I stand with the leftover embryos, when they are donated to scientific and medical research, I feel better knowing that they could make a difference. I have a difficult time agreeing with excessive discarding, but if the embryos are not exploited or mistreated, you could say, or if the doctors are being truthful with where they are going, I don't see it as a problem. So overall, I think in vitro fertilization should be an option. It is an individual's own decision to participate in vitro fertilization, and I believe that everyone should have the right to do that, and someone telling them that they can't is not morally right to me. So wherever you stand on this, I think that allowing people to have the choice is key. Now here are my sources. Thank you so much for watching my little short presentation on in vitro fertilization. I had a blast researching about it, and it sparked a lot of family discussion, and I definitely learned some new things about medical and scientific studies with embryonic research and the whole process, and a success story with Louise Joyce Brown and several of the cases. There's like 500 million in vitro babies are born worldwide, so I think that it's come a long way, and it still has a long way to go, but overall it's a great thing. So thank you for watching.